From Studio A at 1 Biloxi Square in Fort Worth, Texas, this is the Grandpa and Pappy Show. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It is time for the Grandpa and Pappy Show, and we welcome everybody in. I hope your week is going great, and we've got an interesting show planned for you today. Your reaction to this past weekend. Of course, if you've been in the deep woods of East Texas and got lost, or up in space, or maybe the Arctic, you would know that over the weekend, Pappy, was the 20th anniversary
20 years
of
wow.
9/11.
Hard to believe, huh?
Hard to believe. I mean, golly, it just seems like a couple of weeks ago sometimes for some of us in our memories.
What were you doing that day?
Well, I'll tell you what I was doing. I was a special finance manager at Town East Ford, and I didn't have to be in until 10 o'clock that morning.
Yeah.
And Special K had gotten up and gone to work, and I jumped in the shower, kind of taking my time, and she came back in and turned on the TV and said, "Something's happening." And so we sat there and watched the second plane hit the towers, and we knew something was going on. And I'll tell you, I went ahead and went to work, but in that large auto dealership, not a single customer was in there all day.
I bet.
So we stayed in at the customer lounge watching TV coverage of it all day long, and
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, it's something I'll never, ever forget. Now, you were overseas.
I was in New Zealand when it happened.
Yeah.
About 2:15, 2:20 in the morning, they was rattling my cage telling me I need to get up. And I thought they was watching a movie. I didn't know what the hell was going on. It was pretty surreal. Yeah. Took me a while to get home too.
I'll bet it did. I bet it did with all the planes being grounded.
It was about 2.5 months.
Now, Special K went on into work. Karen, you went into work and had a little excitement up there too, didn't you?
I went into work, and actually we were watching the first plane hit when I came back in because I heard it on the radio.
Yeah.
And then when I got to work, the second plane, everybody was down in the lounge watching everything going on, and then the second plane hit, and nobody was getting nothing. Nobody was at their desk. Nobody was working. Nobody was doing anything. Well, I guess about 11 o'clock or so, we got evacuated because somebody had issued a bomb threat on our building. So they evacuated everybody out of the building and would not allow anybody back in.
Wow.
Well, it turned out to be a prank, which was sick, in my opinion. And they just sent everybody home for the rest of the day because nothing was getting done.
Yeah.
Everybody was so scared and stuck to the TV trying to figure all this out. It was just crazy. That was a crazy day. And then the part to me that was so eerie was after they... What do they do when they
grounded
all the planes? Yeah. It was just silence. I mean, silence, and nothing in the air. It was, to me, the next week was eerie,
deathly quiet
and scary. So that's pretty much my.
And it did incite a lot of bomb threats and.
People wanted the day off. That's what they wanted. They took advantage of the situation.
One good way of doing it, I guess.
What's the Democrats' old saying? Never waste a good crisis. I guess some people did that. And we're not trying to make fun or light of it. And that brought us up to our question of the day that we ask you, our beautiful listeners, about where were you on 9/11, and what were you doing? What do you remember about the 9/11 crisis? And I will say, a lot of people, Pappy, were on their toes this past weekend expecting something to happen.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And with all of the things going on in Afghanistan, it just kind of built it up even more.
Yep.
And all of our law enforcement and military were on high alert this past weekend, and thank God in heaven there was nothing that happened.
You know the goat herders over there laughing their butts off about it too.
Oh yeah, yeah they are. They certainly are. And we ask you, our fine listeners, what you thought. And let's start with Crawford Young. Crawford told us he was working with a crew pouring architectural concrete at the Modern Art Museum here in Fort Worth.
By God.
Yeah.
Bob Baker told us he was in his bedroom getting ready to go to work when his brother called him and asked, "Are you watching this?" And he said, "No, watching what?" He found out real quick, I bet.
Yeah, that's for true. Melissa Grayson said, "I was about to walk out of the door to go to work, and I reached to turn the TV off when the first plane hit. I couldn't believe what I saw and just stood there watching and listening. Then the second plane hit, and I knew it was something sinister. I called into work, and they said, 'Stay home.'
Yep.
I was riveted to my TV for the entire day."
Yeah. As many were.
I don't think there was any American that wasn't riveted to a TV screen or had their ear on a radio, all day long. I mean, it was something that shook this entire country to the core.
The whole world. Yeah. There's people freaking out everywhere. Alicia Marie Nelson says, "I was in junior ROTC in school and went to the locker room to watch it all live. So scary and so sad."
Yes, it was.
Jerry Blum said, "I was working on helicopters in Killeen, Texas."
Big Jerry.
Yeah,
Yep.
making them fly.
I wonder how many of those helicopters made it across the ocean. James Green told us, "I was working in the audio department at Sears and had just turned on all of the TV sets when it happened. Every employee in the store and those that were in the mall came over to that department and was glued to the TVs watching it unfold. It was eerily quiet and no one was talking."
I bet it was.
And I can tell you that from experience. I mean, when we sat there and watched that in the customer lounge at the dealership I was working with, no one talked. I mean, they were so riveted by what was being said on TV.
Yeah. What can you say?
And everybody was in their own state of shock, I should say. And when you close your eyes, you can still see all of that unfold. Yeah. I can, at least.
Yeah, see that second plane hitting that tower.
Yeah.
Bobby Lovell said, "I was driving and heard it on the radio." Sherry Briggs Cone said, "I was grading test papers at school in Belton, Texas." And John Culhane said, "I was installing a new back door."
I bet he stopped. What do you bet?
Yeah.
I'll bet he did. Your buddy Stephen W. Crenshaw says, "I was standing in the living room drinking coffee and watching Katie and Matt."
Yeah.
I cleaned that up a little bit. They were talking outside and the first plane went overhead. I woke Connie and said, "We are under attack." There's a lot of folks there that would agree with that.
Yeah.
Lord have mercy.
Tim Randall said, "I was a bouncer at a local gentleman's club, so I was sleeping until I got a phone call to turn on the TV. I asked what channel, and they said it didn't matter. I was glued to the TV for most of the day." Kathy Holmes says she and her husband were at the doctor's office, and they had it on television as well. So
that's a heck of a way to find out in the doctor's office. But I'm telling you, I've talked to a lot of folks, and they say to this day they can still close their eyes and remember that day very, very vividly.
Yep.
Wow.
I'm one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Brent Hardy told us, "I was in college getting ready for class and watching the Today Show. I watched everything unfold live. I sat in front of the TV for about 36 hours. It's truly something I will never forget." And Barton Taylor said, "I was fishing in Texas City."
Yeah.
Wow.
Miles Wheatley told us he got up to get dressed and turn on the television just as the first plane hit. "I was mesmerized and couldn't believe what I was seeing. I just sat on the edge of the bed and was disbelieving what I was seeing. I was watching CBS when they showed a man jumping out of the window as the fire was about to get him. that vision still sticks in my head to this day.
And you know, I can remember that too. And there was a lady, if I remember correctly,
About 3 or 4
that jumped rather than be burned alive.
Well,
You know,
I'd probably be inclined to do the same thing.
you know that brings up a kind of a religious aspect. I really don't want to go into it deep, but I heard some controversy on it that by jumping out of those towers, rather than being burned alive, it's a sin to commit suicide. And so the conversation struck from there. But I don't know. I have a feeling that the good Lord upstairs, in his infinite wisdom and knowledge, looked at the situation and said,
I don't
"Come
blame
home,
you.
child.
I don't blame you. Yeah.
Come home, child."
Well,
Yeah.
and they claim the towers are so tall that chances are the people didn't even know they hit. You know, I mean, they were dead before they hit the ground.
Yeah,
So.
and we were watching some news shows, and you could hear bump,
Yeah.
bump. And there was a, correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, there was a fire department New York chaplain that was outside and got hit by one of the falling bodies and killed.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
That's crazy.
Susan Saunders says, I was working at a used car lot getting titles ready for transfer. Also, I was trying to get my kids out of school since we lived so close to the base and Lockheed at the time. Steve Nelson says, I was working my first international trip for my company in Algeria. Boy, that's a bad place to be. You stop and think about it. I'm glad you made it home, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Daryl.
John Bossy said, I was driving down 121 in Dallas. I walked into the showroom, and the TV was on, and the evil devils hit the second tower. We closed the office for the day. Daryl Woodle said, I was on my way back to work in College Station, Texas.
Good Lord of mercy.
Gagama Iggy's.
Yeah, I tell you what, if people just they stop and think about that day, and it's just really heartbreaking. It really is. And I think about not only the folks on those two planes, but a lot of people forget that a third and fourth plane were hijacked. One hit the Pentagon and killed some folks there. Mm-hmm. The fourth plane, which I think showed so much heroism.
Is that the one that crashed in Pennsylvania?
Yeah. The passengers realized what was going on. They had killed a flight attendant and the co-pilot, and had taken over the cockpit, and they just all got together and decided, well, they're not gonna hit anybody else, so they all rushed the cockpit, caused the plane to crash. And that plane, they theorized, I don't know if it was ever proven, but they theorized that that plane was to make a big circle and turn around and hit the White House.
Yeah.
That's what I...
Well, they wasn't sure if
or
it
the
was,
Capitol building.
Yeah, they wasn't sure which one is. I'm sure as stupid as they are.
And they were saying over the weekend on Saturday that the plane that crashed in Pennsylvania was the first counterattack towards the terrorists. That's what I heard over the weekend.
Let's roll.
Yeah, let's roll. Todd Beamer.
Let's roll.
He was talking to a 9/11 operator, telling her what was going on, and asked her to say the Lord's Prayer with him. And he said, "We're fixing to take control of this plane." And the last words that she heard him say was, "Let's roll," to the other guys, and they did.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to take a brief time out, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about your experiences, what you remember. What did you remember from that day on 9/11 back in 2001? Yeah. We'll take a look at it when we come back right after this. Hi, everyone. This is Grandpa of Grandpa and Pappy, along with our own Special K. And we have an important announcement to tell you about an upcoming event. It's the 11th annual Burgers for Babies. It's a fundraising event benefiting the Children's Miracle Network of Cooks Children's Hospital. And it's going to be held on September the 16th from 4 until 8 o'clock.
And the location is going to be in downtown Fort Worth of the stockyards at the River Ranch Stockyard.
And it's going to be a lot of fun. And 100% of monies that we raise are funneled right back into the Children's Miracle Network at Cook Children's. So if you want to help us out, be listening, and we'll tell you exactly how to make your contribution to Burgers for Babies on September the 16th here on the Grandpa and Pappy Show. So be listening, and we'll be watching for you. Bye-bye. Welcome back, everyone, to the Grandpa and Pappy Show. And we want to remind you that the Burgers for Babies coming up this Thursday, September the 16th, at the River Ranch Stockyards in Fort Worth from 4 until 8 o'clock. We want this to be the biggest one ever in memory of the late Jackie Cohen, who was the instigator in putting this together 10 years ago. Yeah. And we would appreciate it. Pappy and I are going to be emceeing and doing a lot of the talk on the microphone tomorrow. So we hope you will join us on Thursday at the River Ranch Stockyards in Fort Worth from 4 until 8 for Burgers for Babies.
I don't think there's too many better causes out there to be involved with. So y'all come on out and join us.
Absolutely. Well, getting back to what we were talking about, where were you on 9/11 and what memories did you have? Chelsea Lee Phillips told us, I was in the 3rd grade at Daggett Elementary. I remember the school going on lockdown, and I also remember hearing teachers in the hallway crying. We all got sent home from school, and my mother and grandmother picked me up, and my brother too, and we were listening to the news on the radio in the car in complete silence. I remember being very sad, even though I really didn't understand exactly what was going on. I knew a lot of people went to heaven that day. I remember firefighters and police on TV and thinking how brave they all were. After that day, I remember all Americans standing as one and people helping everyone. I also remember all the food drives at school and the letters we wrote to the families of the fallen heroes. I will never forget it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Daryl Bull said, I just walked in the back door of the hospital. My secretary asked me if I've been listening to the radio. I spent the rest of my day in the conference room in front of television in total dismay. Charlie George said, I was with my mother in the hospital.
Yep. Lord have mercy. Michael Prescott said, after 9/11, I would totally sympathize with my father, who had always told me how Pearl Harbor had affected his psyche when it happened then. I watched TV for almost 2 days straight and couldn't believe we had been attacked. It was bad enough with the Twin Towers, but the Pentagon and then those brave souls in Pennsylvania who caused the plane to crash instead of flying it into the White House. Oh, yeah. I will never forget. And, he brings up a really interesting comment there that his dad had told him how it affected his psyche when Pearl Harbor was bombed. Now, they didn't have all this live coverage and everything. All they had was radio coverage. And people were glued, I'm sure, to the radio. And then, of course, Franklin Delano Roosevelt the next day gave the speech to Congress about what had happened and asked for a declaration of war. And that's when the U.S. went to war in World War II.
I'll tell you what, the Japanese opened up a pine box or something they wasn't ready to see.
Yeah, that's true.
My favorite little daughter-in-law, Cassie Terry, told us the first plane, I was in the 9th grade, first period English class. We didn't know at the time that the first plane had hit. They tried to hold everyone in first period, but the bell rang right when the principal came over the intercom. I walked into my second period, world geography class, when the second plane hit. We were kids, not knowing what was going on. My teacher always had the news on between classes, so it was a normal thing for the TV news to be on when we got to class. He was a cool teacher, but when we saw his face and he had a serious voice, we knew he meant business. We stayed in second period for the rest of the day. I didn't know what I'd just seen when I walked into class that day. Well, he's probably better off not knowing, darling.
Yeah. Truly that. Truly that. If you hear in background noise, they are doing their maintenance here at 1 Biloxi Square. So
Wait till they start shining that bell in the bell tower. It's going to get noisy.
yeah, so bear with us. Nelda Pound Slater said, I was in my classroom. My brother sent me a message to tell me about it. I pulled up the news then and watched it. Jennifer King said, I was working at the nursing home. And Marie West Foster says, I was at home recovering from gallbladder surgery. Shannon Fretwell says, I was taking my kids to school. And it was very, very sad.
Yeah, it was indeed. And speaking of Jennifer King, I appreciate what you did yesterday. Yesterday was Divine One's birthday.
Yeah.
And Jennifer and Chad sent her a big old bouquet of flowers.
How about
real
that?
Pretty. Pretty tree. Almost makes me wonder what the hell she's up to.
Ulterior motive.
Yeah. Liam Bruno says, I was building a school in Highland Falls, New York. We watched one of the planes fly along the Hudson River and wondered why it was flying so low. Butch Sparks said he was fixing breakfast in Bankersmith, Texas.
Where is that, Bankersmith? I thought I'd
Never
heard
heard
every
it.
town in Texas.
That's one that I haven't seen.
I have not either. I hadn't even looked it up either. I didn't have a chance.
Bankersmith.
Yeah. So, anyway, Jim Krause says, I was at home when my wife called and told me to turn on the TV and start recording. I recorded hours and hours of the coverage from just as the second plane hit on through the collapse of the towers to the chaos and agony of the hours and days after.
Yeah.
Darla Walker said she just got home from taking the kids to school.
Boy, that did stir a lot of stink up for a long time.
It really did.
I will never, ever forget when I was getting off that plane at LAX coming in from New Zealand. Mm-hmm. It was a different world than I'd left.
Oh, yeah.
Even 2.5 months later.
Absolutely.
All these camo guys standing around with ARs, sticking them up under your nose.
Well.
It was nuts. Where are we here? Cindy.
Jim, Cindy. Yeah.
Yeah, Cindy Douglas told us she was in upstate New York. I got a call from my kids' school to come pick them up. My husband got home from work, and we were glued to the television. Of course, family and friends kept calling from Texas to make sure we were safe. Chris Palmore said it was his senior year, and he was in rhetoric class in first period. That's probably rhetoric, isn't it?
A rhetorical question, yeah.
Rhetorical.
Yeah, Ronnie Barnett said, I was driving a Peterbilt eastbound on I-20 near Odessa, Texas, and I heard about it on the Bob and Tom radio show. Keith Roche says, I was on active duty 19 years in the military and contemplating retirement and working on my brother's house to sell it to pay for his funeral bill. Yeah. 2 days later, on a bus back to base to deploy for a short war, then mandatory retirement hit 8 years later.
Took them that long just to get the paperwork in order.
Sure did.
Jen Earnhardt said, my neighbor was on the outskirts of Barksdale Air Force Base's runway. We were at home mourning the loss of twin babies that we buried the day before. Wow. Donna Briggs Moss said, I was in West Virginia. My son was a paramedic with the San Antonio Fire Department. He called right after the first plane hit. And Gigi Carter said, I was at home since it was my day off. So.
Wow. Alex Palomo told us he was at work at HMC and couldn't believe what I was seeing. Ginger Lynch says, I was in my classroom. I walked down the hallway and teachers were gathered in the curriculum director's office glued to the TV. Yeah. Jeff Wordy said it was the first day of Marine boot camp. I landed in San Diego on 9/10/2001. Wow.
All kind of things running through his mind that next day, I bet.
Yeah.
Shoshana Henderson told us I was getting ready for work and turned on the news, which was weird because I never watched the news. I remember seeing the second plane hit and thinking, this had to be a new movie coming out. You know, that's exactly what I thought.
There was a lot of people that thought that.
I flipped the channel and it was the same thing. I looked for my boyfriend at the time and said, oh, God, we're going to war.
Mm-hmm. Yep. When it finally dawned on people. Yeah. Shirley Mills said, I was in my cube at Frito-Lay headquarters working until I heard a lot of commotion in the halls. I put the news on my computer and was so scared about what I was seeing. How could anyone do this to us, the United States of America? Leon Martin said, I was in Boston. I flew in on Monday. I spent the day in shock watching the events unfold in disbelief and wondering how or if I was going to get back home to North Carolina. Wow.
Wow. Yep.
Well,
Crazy
that's
times.
some of you are reminiscing about 9/11, and certainly we all have our memories of what happened that fateful day.
There was a few more comments that we couldn't work in on the show because of time restraints. So
That's true.
just remember on your comments and responses, get them in while you're thinking about them. You know?
Absolutely.
Give us time to get them transposed and put on the show.
Yeah. Let's take a look at some of the viewer comments we got in. Jason Ridley said on YouTube that he agreed with our show on whether our president violated his oath of office. When you take that oath, you're swearing to protect Americans everywhere and against all enemies, foreign and domestic. He's right.
I'm beginning to wonder.
Yeah, me too.
Paula216 said on Twitter that it was refreshing to hear a college kid talk about events going on today. And that's when we had Shane Garrity.
Yeah, sure was.
At least some of our kids are blessed with those two words, common
Bingo.
sense, and love our country. That was a good idea to get perspective from a young person. Paula, we think so too. Shane's a sharp kid.
He was, and he did
really
a good job.
is, yeah.
James Redmond said, I watched one of your past shows on the NFL playing the Black National Anthem. I cussed some and went about my business, but you should have heard the cussing when they did it prior to the Dallas-Tampa Bay game. I almost had to buy another new TV.
I need to get you some more of those foam bricks.
Ain't it so?
And to close out your comments on this week's Grandpa and Pappy Show, we'd like to announce and welcome a new subscriber in the form of one Sharon Woodson to our show. Welcome aboard, kiddo. Feel free to write your opinions and give us some show topics to tackle.
That's exactly
Welcome on board.
correct.
We love having you here.
Well, it was a lot of fun today, and once again, before we close out, we want to remind you that Thursday is the Burgers for Babies benefit coming up
Tomorrow night.
from 4 until 8 o'clock at the River Ranch Stockyards
Yeehaw.
here
Not too late
in
to
Fort
donate.
Worth. So, what?
It's not too late to donate.
Yes,
Never
and
too
it's
late
not
to
too
donate.
late to donate. Right there you see on your screen is how you can do it, or you can show up at the event tomorrow and help us raise money for Cook Children's Medical Center's Children's Miracle Network.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun today. We appreciate
has.
you being with us. If you have an idea or a comment for the show, just send it to us at grandpaandpappy@gmail.com.
Good way to do it.
Yep, or
you can hit us up on our show website page, which can be found at www.grandpa and the letter N Pappy. That's grandpaandpappy.com.
that's correct.
You'll see a big old red button just like that one that Special K made pop up.
Yep.
Push it. Subscribe. We love new subscribers.
Yes, we do.
We're numbers driven, and we'd love having you on board.
Yes, we do. Hey, it's been a lot of fun today. You can also go on Grandpa and Pappy's Facebook group page where you'll see the question of the day and a lot of the opinions that are expressed before they hit the air here with us.
If you dare.
We close out every show the same way because it's so important these days. Reach out and touch your kids, hug them, and let them know that you love them.
Please do, and let them know they're well loved right here at the Grandpa and Pappy Show, too, by God,
By
amigo.
George, absolutely. Till we see you again, everybody, take care of one another. It's so easy to do. God bless you, and God bless America.
We'll see you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.